Iruma is a smelly, sweaty-ass, dumb little loser who doesn't know anything about the realities of this world. His parents decide to put him up for adoption because he's just that big of a loser, but his life changes when a demon decides to adopt him and takes him to the demon realm. Far away from the human realm, the demons rule a world alongside a variety of monsters and beastmen. Since the last demon king went missing, the throne has been vacant and everyone is wondering who will be their next ruler. On the other hand, Iruma is a 14-year-old kid who works all sorts of odd jobs because his loser parents refuse to work themselves. Besides that, he is also a pushover who never says no and ends up working a lot without making much money. One day, while working on a tuna ship, he manages to barely survive from fishes falling out of all the storage containers, but then time suddenly stops and he finds himself all tied up and sold to a demon wearing small glasses. The demon teleports with him and casts a spell that allows him to understand demonies and explains that he was sold to him by his parents and that this is the netherworld ruled by demons. He then takes him to his mansion while Iruma wonders if he would be served as dinner tonight, but then he finds himself sitting in a chair with the demon bowing before him and asking him if he would like to become his grandson. The demon introduces himself as Sullivan and explains that he has been single all his life and got jealous of his friends who boast about their grandkids, so he has been wanting to have a grandson of his own as well. He says please and begs him for his consent, and being the pushover he is, Iruma ends up signing the contract and becomes the grandson of a demon overnight. After the contract, Sullivan uses his magic to decorate his room with fancy furniture and dresses him up in a nice suit. He gives him all the books and things he might need for his school studies and reveals that he knows about him not being able to get an education because of his selfish parents, and so he will be joining the demon school starting tomorrow. He tells him that he will be alright as long as no one finds out that he is a human or else they would eat him up for dinner. Iruma starts panicking, but Sullivan showers him with some of his juice and says that with this perfume on, no one will be able to tell him apart. After that, he puts Iruma asleep and walks out to meet his servant, Opera, who asks why he decided to adopt a human instead of a demon, but Sullivan tells him to just watch quietly. The next day, they drop Iruma at the school and Sullivan takes a picture with him as well. At the school, Iruma gets to see all sorts of demons, including this hottie, and then walks to the auditorium to attend the entrance ceremony, where his fellow schoolmates sing their demonic anthem about eating humans and making them wet their pants. After that, the host tells everyone that their chairman is going to have a word with them, and everyone starts screaming like annoying girls at a music concert, and it turns out the chairman is none other than Sullivan himself. He takes out a printout of the picture he took with Iruma this morning and tells everyone how he has a grandson now and how excited he is about him joining them at the school. After that, the host calls for the top scoring student from their batch to deliver the speech, but Sullivan changes it so Iruma has to do it instead. This makes him really nervous, but Sullivan takes care of that once again by giving him a pre-written speech and tells him to say it out aloud. Iruma tries to read the gibberish on the paper, and it turns out to be a super forbidden spell that blows the caster away like terrorists if they mispronounce even one letter. The spell also has the effect of keeping the caster from tripping and falling down for 24 hours. Seeing him execute the spell in perfection makes everyone really shocked and amazed, and even the teachers cheer him on for this performance. After that, he walks off the stage and gets approached by the top scoring student, Alice. He challenges him to a duel for taking his spotlight and reveals that he is the son of one of the 13 crowns, who are at the top of the ruling class in the demon world. He is a specialist in fire magic and launches a barrage of fireballs at Iruma in their fight. But to everyone's surprise, Iruma manages to dodge every single one of them, and we find out that over the years of being abused and exploited by people around him, Iruma has developed the ultimate defense known by Dragon Ball fans as Ultra Instinct. Everyone watching thinks that he is just playing around with Alice, and this makes him really mad, so he uses his ultimate spell and forms a blade of fire and charges in to cut Iruma with it. Iruma dodges the assault, and Alice ends up running towards an innocent girl in the crowd. Iruma tries to stop him by making him fall down, but thanks to his spell that he casted earlier, he ends up grabbing Alice and knocking him out with a clean German suplex. This event makes news in the school paper, and Iruma unwillingly becomes really popular on his very first day. He goes to Sullivan's office just to see him fanboying over his newly adopted grandson, but then Alice walks in and bows before Iruma and says that according to the demonic law, he is now his servant and will do his best to eliminate everyone around him to make him the top of the school. The next day, Sullivan and Opera give Iruma a lot of gifts and ask him how he liked his first day at school. Iruma decides to tell them how he doesn't want to go there because he fears he might get eaten by all the demons around him, but being the pushover he is, he ends up saying he wants to go instead of saying no to Sullivan's expecting face. At the school, he meets Alice at the entrance, who says that he has been waiting for him there for 6 hours and 6 minutes and carries his bag for him. He then explains that all the 163 new students will be divided into different groups until classes start, and that they are both in the same group. For their first activity, they will be doing a familiar summoning ritual, and so they will be going to the familiar's hall. He further explains that it's a ritual at the school and every student's rank will be determined by the type of familiar they summon and tame. This will also decide which class they will start in, and their teacher this time is said to be the famous instructor, Caligo, who is the anime brother of Snape from Harry Potter. He then explains the method of summoning familiars and says that anyone who fails to do it will be immediately expelled. With that, everyone starts summoning their familiars, and Alice manages to summon a Gorgon snake. Caligo seems to have a grudge against Iruma because he thinks he got in because of his annoying grandpa and acts like some big hotshot. Despite that, he is an honest instructor and calls Iruma forward to perform the ritual, reminding him if he fails, he would be expelled. Iruma thinks about it for a second and thinks that it might be a good way to get out of this situation as he is a human and won't be able to perform the ritual. He then happily burns his summoning seal on the magic flame and to everyone's surprise, ends up summoning none other than Caligo as his summon. The spell turns Caligo into his demonic bird form and makes him Iruma's familiar. They both immediately go to Sullivan to find a way to nullify the contract, but he explains that the contract is not changeable and that they are both locked with each other for a year. With that, Caligo goes into depression and Iruma passes the exam and no one knows how to rank him. After that, Iruma walks towards his next class with Alice and attracts a lot of attention due to him scaring everyone in front of them. Once they reach their classroom, a green-haired girl rolls into some cardboard boxes and pretends to be a bowling ball. She introduces herself as Carla and her feet as not safe for work. She seems to be really excited and hyperactive like a kid on a sugar rush, making Iruma wonder what he got himself into this time. Alice explains that she is famous for being a weirdo, and it's a pain in the ass if she gets attached to you so no one goes near her. They both decide to sneak out of there, but then a teacher runs towards them and uses his magic to tie them all up and tells Alice and Iruma to take care of Carla as she was making a mess for the teachers. With that, they all get put down in the lawn outside the building and Carla starts showing Iruma and Alice all sorts of things from her collection. At one point, she ends up making a request from Iruma to play with her. Being the beta male he is, he ends up following all her commands and even turns into a dog for her. Alice tries to stop Carla, but she gets him to play along as well using Iruma, and they spend hours playing together. After that, she brings out some snacks from her magical pocket and shares them with them and explains that this is the special magic item of her family, which allows her to create anything and pull it out of there as long as she has seen it before. Just then, a group of students call out to her and ask for some drinks and walk away. Iruma asks about them and Carla explains that they are her playmates and play with her in exchange for some snacks. Iruma takes note of this and feels sad for her as she's being used by them just like he was back in the human world. For the next few days, Iruma promises to play with Carla, and every time she gives him snacks and stuff after finished playing. Seeing this, Iruma grabs her hands and says that he doesn't want those things from her, which makes her cry as she thinks that he will leave her. She says that she knows that she is weird and dumb, and that no one wants to be near her, but Iruma cuts her off and says that he wants to be with her for real and not someone who uses her for her free snacks. This makes Carla turn red and she becomes really happy and cuts her ties off with the bad students from earlier. The next day, Alice and Carla both come to pick Iruma up from his house so they can walk to school together. Sullivan sees this and becomes really happy to see his grandson making new friends, and this surprises Iruma, as well as he never had friends in his old life. Later that day at the school cafeteria, Iruma asks Alice about the weird symbols on the menu, and he explains that those were rank symbols, and at their school Babels, people can only order food from the menu of their rank, and as they are unranked right now, they can only order from this short selection at the bottom. Also, the food at the school is free, and you can buy stuff from the merchandise store if you want to. Hearing about free food makes the peasant in Iruma wake up, and he ends up ordering 50 servings of everything and cleans all the plates. This makes everyone surprised and admire him as a massive appetite, is a symbol of strength among demons, and all the cooking makes the chef fall down from exhaustion as well. Just then, they hear the merchandise shop owner grab Carla as she causes trouble for him, and he explains that she is banned from the store due to her powers. Just then, Caligo walks in and says that he is disappointed to see people causing trouble the day he decides to come back to school and finds out that Iruma is behind all this. He also notices Carla and decides to simply turn around and walk out, but Carla grabs him and says that she wants to see him turn into a small bird. Iruma instantly grabs his summoning circle from the store and summons Caligo, and this makes him transform as his familiar. The store owner calls them out for shoplifting and they all run away, but Caligo gets caught and ends up paying for everything himself. Outside, Carla shares some ice creams with Alice and Iruma says that he's really happy to have friends like them. This makes both of them really confused as they don't know what friends are, and Iruma explains that these are people you play with, eat meals with, and are really important to you. This makes both of them really excited, and they start fighting each other over the title of being Iruma's #1 friend. On the other hand, we see Sullivan and the school board decide upon the new students' classes, and we find out that Carla, Iruma, and Alice are all decided to be part of the problem children section called the Misfits class. The next day, Sullivan tells Iruma that he decided to put him in the Misfits class, so he won't stand out as he requested. Iruma thanks him and goes out to walk to the school with his friends. Alice asks him why he always walks to the school instead of flying there, and Iruma wonders if this is the end of his new life, but then Alice says that it must be because he wants to strengthen his leg muscles and decides to go with that. After arriving at the school, they all go to the first year's tower to go to their classroom and end up in a stink hole where the Misfits classroom is located. Iruma walks in and immediately gets attacked by a bunch of weapons, but thanks to his ultra instinct, he manages to dodge all of them. His classmates greet him and explain that they were betting on how many would hit him and that he is the first one who dodged them all, even though they had another who caught all the weapons instead. Just then, a blonde-haired demon walks up to them and introduces himself as Saburo and says that he won't ever do something as cowardly as dodging. He says that he is going to be the next Pirate King, but then realizes that this is the wrong anime and corrects himself by saying that he meant the next Demon King. He says that he will reach the Yoth rank first and then become the Demon King, and explains that there are 10 ranks among the demons and Yoth is the top of them all. Just then, Caligo walks in and reveals that he is their teacher thanks to them, making him get late for his teacher's meeting, where he got elected as the teacher of their dumb class. He then takes attendance and says that their first task will be a race through the mist-covered valley. There are 2 routes to the goal flag, one being longer but safer, while the other one being shorter but dangerous. Due to the guardian of the dangerous path being moody these days, they will be only using the longer path, but Saburo says that he will take the shorter route as that's what the Demon King would do. Caligo looks at his dumb ass and says he doesn't care and tells them to do whatever they want. With that, he begins the race and everyone flies off except Iruma. He wonders what to do, but Caligo kicks him off the cliff and tells him to get going already. After that, he pulls out an observation mirror and uses it to look at all the students and watches them do dumb stuff while flying across the valley. Saburo ends up running into the mad guardian of the valley and gets his ass whooped by him. Alice zooms through the valley using his elite summon and fire magic, while Carla uses him like a pet and rides over his back. On the other hand, Iruma gets caught by a bunch of bird monsters as they fly towards their nest to have him for lunch, but then he falls down into the nest of the guardian of the valley. There he sees its baby who has an injured foot and offers to help it by patching it up using a piece of cloth. Iruma tries to gain its trust by cutting his hand and showing him how he wants to patch his leg by wrapping a cloth over it, and the baby bird agrees. But when Iruma tries to wrap it, a drop of his blood falls into the wound and it heals the bird immediately. This makes the bird really happy and it offers to fly Iruma to the end goal on its back. The bird eventually takes him to its mother, who happens to be the guardian of the valley. They find the guardian in a battle against Saburo, and Iruma notices the guardian planning to land the finishing blow on his fellow classmate. He jumps in between them and tells the guardian to stop, and the baby bird explains everything to its mom, and they both end up bowing to Iruma in gratitude. They then take both of them to the finish line and back to the starting area. On the other hand, we see Alice come in first, with Carla being second and everyone waiting for Iruma and Saburo at the end. They both eventually arrive riding on the back of the guardian, who surprises everyone and gets in last place. After that, Caligo brings the ranking owl out and tells the students to get themselves ranked. The owl is known to be really observant, and it grants ranks based on its unbiased assessment. Alice ends up with the highest rank among the class with the Daleth badge, which is the 4th rank. Carla and Jazz get the 3rd rank called Gimel. Saburo gets the 2nd rank badge alongside a bunch of other demons, and Iruma pulls out a golden ring that attaches to his hand permanently. The ring summons a dark creature, which lets out a loud cry which alerts even Sullivan. It then starts sucking magical power out of anyone who tries to get near it, and Caligo decides to cut Iruma's hand off for the safety of other students. But just then, Sullivan arrives and fills the ring with his own magic and explains that it is called the Ring of Gluttony, and it is completely safe as long as it is full of magical energy. The ring is used to store mana to cast larger spells, and he doesn't know why Iruma got the ring instead of his rank badge and laughs it off. With that, Iruma gets placed at the bottom of the ranking ladder at 1st rank Aleph, but makes the news for his unusual way of completing the race at the back of the Guardian of the Valley and getting the ring instead of a rank badge from the owl. The next day, after getting ranked, they get to attend classes with other teachers, and Caligo advises all of them to be respectful and to not cause trouble for others around them. With that, Iruma gets to experience all sorts of lessons and eventually arrives at the demon botany class where the professor shows them how to make a flower bloom using their magic. She tells them to envision what kind of flower they want to grow, and everyone creates all sorts of weird-looking flowers, including this bird brain named Kamui, who is totally a real man of culture. Iruma thinks to himself that he would have liked to grow a beautiful flower as well if he had magic, and puts his hand with the ring over the plant, and to his surprise, he makes the sapling bloom into a gigantic sakura blossom tree. Sullivan calls him and explains that thanks to the magical energy that he stored in his ring, he's able to now use magic, and Iruma wishes that he knew this before. After that, he goes on to help the cleaners clear the mess caused by his massive tree breaking through the building's roof. On the other hand, we see the student council talking about Iruma, and we also meet their leader, the president of the student council, and the daughter of one of the 13 crowns, Ameri. From their conversation, we find out that demons don't believe in the existence of humans and consider them superstition, but Ameri has a theory that Iruma is a human and says to herself that humans are actually real and their existence is only known to very few demons. She then walks into her room and reveals a secret room behind the wall where she has a collection of sacred texts from the human realm passed down in her family through generations called Manga. She then starts reading this manga series called First Love Memories and seems to be interested in the romantic aspect of it, even though she can't read what the text says. Later that day, she runs into Iruma and compares their encounter to what she saw in the manga and thinks that he is trying to make her fall in love with him and thinks that he must be a human, as she theorized. She starts panicking and thinks that as the student council president, she should hand him over to the rightful authorities and have him go back to the human world, but then the manga volume falls down from under her shirt and Iruma picks it up. He notices the manga and says that he was one of the editors during its production and how he likes it a lot, and this makes Ameri even more interested. After confirming that he can read the human language, she drags him to her room and makes him read the manga out to her over some tea and snacks. This way, they become good friends, and she even puts her number in his phone and tells him to meet her alone after classes for their manga sessions. After that, Iruma walks out and notices all the messages and missed calls from Alice where he tells him that the student council was looking for him and the president wants to have a word with him. He wonders who the student council president is and goes back home. The next day, Opera asks Iruma if he wants to return to the human world, and if he does, he needs to graduate with a high rank and then it's possible. Hearing this, Iruma starts thinking about the idea and wonders if he really wants to go back to his old life or not. Later that day, he ditches Alice and Carla to meet Ameri after school, which troubles them a lot. They start following after him and wonder what he is doing with the student council president. On the other hand, Iruma and Ameri discuss the topic of dreams and ambitions, and Ameri reveals that her ambition is to make the demon realm a good place for everyone to live, and that she wants others to be proud of being a demon as well. Besides that, she also wants to work in a flower and cake shop. After that, she asks Iruma about his ambition and dream, which puts him in deep thought. Meanwhile, Carla decides to barge in and get Iruma out of there, as she thinks Ameri is trying to steal Iruma from her. Alice fights her back and holds her off while Ameri manages to convince Iruma to work on becoming a better student by ranking up. Just then, Carla manages to get inside and drags him away. Iruma thinks about Ameri's suggestion and wonders if that is the right thing to do for him, as he is a human and doesn't want to stand out. He decides to continue as usual for the time being, and this annoys Carla a lot as he spends more and more time with Ameri and not playing with her. She whines about it to Saburo and being the musclehead he is. He quotes a line from the How to Become a Demon King guidebook while lifting some weights and says that a demon should take back what belongs to them if someone else tries to snatch it away from them. He suggests that she use her feminine charm and make Iruma do her bidding, and Carla seems to like this plan. With that, she decides to take Miss Rame's seduction class for women, and Alice feels sorry for her, as he thinks that she can't read properly and decides to circle the option without knowing. Anyways, Carla goes to take her class, and their Rame sensei uses her magic to see their sensual allure and finds out that Carla is as innocent as a baby with only 2% feminine charm in her. She gives her a lot of special magazines and books written by Jiraiya sensei from Naruto and tells her to study up. Carla reads everything she can and tries to use the techniques on Iruma, but ends up just making a clown out of herself. Eventually, the teacher tells her that this course isn't for her, and if she really wants to make someone fall for her, she can opt to use this special potion that she brewed. Carla looks at it and says that she doesn't need it and walks out sadly. She feels sorry for herself and whines about it while rolling near a riverbank, but then Iruma walks close to her and says that a girl should be out this late, and this makes her really happy. Knowing that Iruma looks at her as a girl brings her morale a bit, and she tells him that she will make him fall heads over heels for her and then runs off with him like usual playing her dumb games. Meanwhile, Ryam-sensei looks at her and feels happy to see that her percentage has gone up to 10%. On the other hand, Iruma decides to climb up the ranks after all and tells Alice and Carla about this ambition. He says that he wants to try for the second rank for now, and this makes Alice really happy. He takes them to the underground training court and explains that the rank-up exam is coming up in a week, and in old times it was decided by a war where the participants would be divided into two groups defending two castles, and their goal would be to take over the other castle while defeating their enemies. But due to the high cost and casualty rate of this method, they have now moved to hitting each other with this special ball inside these halves marked by lines. They begin their training, and Iruma quickly realizes that they are just playing dodgeball and feels happy for it to not be something life-threatening. But then his class fellows join in and show how the real game would go, and he quickly finds out that he doesn't stand a chance given how everyone is using magical spells and insane skull-crushing throws. They all tell him to cheer up and offer to help him train, and this marks the beginning of Iruma's dodgeball training session. He continues this for almost a week with Sullivan and Opera training him at home and teaching him a special spell that summons a fiery dragon and shoots through everything in its path. Iruma says that he just wants to be able to catch the ball so he can go on the offensive as well without hurting anyone, and Sullivan helps him by casting a physical strengthening spell in his hands. Eventually, Iruma manages to catch the ball and makes his grandpa and Opera really proud. With that, the day of the dodgeball match arrives, and Caligo sets up the stage with rules and acts as the referee. He divides all the students in two teams, and Alice and Iruma end up on opposite teams. The match begins, and Iruma manages to dodge all the balls while Alice destroys everyone else. From Iruma's side, Saburo and Carla do their best to clear the opposite team as well, but at the end it comes down to a 1v1 between Iruma and Alice. Alice wonders if he should let Iruma win the match, but then he realizes how it would be an insult to all the hard work that he put in his training this past week and decides to go full force. He launches the ball with a fiery spell towards Iruma, and Iruma rushes forward and catches it. The ball pushes him back, but before it can knock him out of the ring, Iruma uses the ball's momentum to turn it around and launches it back at Alice, hitting his shoulder and winning the match. Caligo approves of this victory and says that if Alice had gone easy on him, he wouldn't have approved his rank up, but considering they both actually gave their all to it, he promotes Iruma to rank 2, bet. After that, everyone celebrates, and Iruma thanks everyone, including Opera and Sullivan. The next day, the Misfits class gets introduced to their new familiar's teacher, Robin. Robin explains that he missed their first day due to being busy with preparing for it and losing the track of time. He then begins their class by making everyone summon their familiars and praises Alice and Saburo for having such strong beasts under their command. He also looks at Clara for her unique familiar, who seems to be the in-charge in their relationship, and then turns towards Iruma and asks him to summon his partner as well. Iruma feels nervous about summoning Caligo, but Robin insists and makes him summon the cute birdie anyway. It turns out Robin doesn't know about Caligo being the familiar, and he makes him and Iruma go through a bunch of exercises to build mutual trust and bond between them. At first, Caligo is against the idea, but being the upright teacher he is, he tells Iruma that he would play along and that he must get the highest score in the subject no matter what. While this is going on, Alice and Saburo get in a fight about their familiar's feet, but Caligo knocks them both down with a single hit and scolds them for causing trouble for others. He then refers to Robin and tells him that they should respect their familiars and that they ain't their pets or slaves, and so a mutual trust is needed. We also find out that the book Robin learned about familiars from was written by Caligo. After this class, they all go back to the cafeteria, and Iruma wonders what he should do now. He wonders if he should keep climbing the ranking ladder, and Alice jumps in and explains that this time around, recruiters from Battlers come out to hire students from the first year. Battlers are really important and tend to have special rank-up exams based on their niche as well. After hearing the whole explanation, Iruma figures that battlers are just like clubs that you find in school in the human realm and wonders what kind of a battler should he join. Just then, a bunch of seniors rush into the hallway and start distributing their posters and ask students to join their battlers. They also give them quick trials and demos about what they are all about, as they only get 66 minutes each day to do this in this season. Iruma roams around and tests a bunch of these clubs with Carla and Alice, and even gets invited to join the student council by Ameri. This is also when he finds out that she is the student council president. During this search, his ring suddenly gets attracted to something and drags him along at lightning-fast speeds. It eventually makes him crash into a senior student who, despite being a senior, is only at rank 2 and is a member of the magical apparatus battler. He seems to be in bad health always and has really less magical energy. His necklace is made up of the same metal as Iruma's ring, and he says that it must be why he got attracted to it. He introduces himself as a third-year student at the school named Kiryu, and explains that his dream is to create magical items which allows demons with less magical energy to be able to use magic as well, and this inspires Iruma somewhat. After this, the recruitment goes on for a couple more days with Iruma still being unsure about which battler he wants to join. During this time, Sullivan configures his ring to adjust the amount of magical energy that comes out and gives him 3 levels of strength. He also teaches Iruma a couple of strong spells and says that he should use them only when he's in real danger. The next day, Iruma goes on to test some more battlers, including the reading battler and the dodgeball battler, but decides against them. He then runs into the senior from earlier once again outside the magical apparatus battler as an explosion opens the door. Iruma takes care of the poor guy and introduces himself before asking about his battler. Kiryu explains that he creates magical items and shows him around his lab. He shows him a magical ball and a paper doll and a bunch of other things, but due to his lack of magical energy, they all stop working pretty quickly. He then shows him the prototype of his masterpiece that he has been working on for quite some time, but says that its energy core needs to be fixed up still. Iruma looks at the pieces and, being the hardworking genius he is, puts them all together in no time and explains that he had to fix and build all sorts of things to survive back home, and that's why he's smart with these things. Using the core, Kiryu turns his machine on and shows how it can enhance one's power output significantly. He then demonstrates it by using a magical light ball, but then tells Iruma to stay quiet as high-ranked demons would definitely not want to hear about such a device. He says that he is the only member of this club and no one else really takes interest in this, but Iruma offers to join him, and this makes him really happy. He also brings Alice and Carla to join the battler as well, making Kiryu fall unconscious out of happiness. Later that day, Iruma goes on to meet Ameri, who has been preparing to accept him into the student council, but when he reveals that he has joined another battler, it makes her really sad, and he ends up having to explain everything to her for 2 hours. On the other hand, we see Sullivan and the other 13 crowns holding meetings about who's going to be the next Demon King. The lower members argue about who's more worthy of taking the position, while the top 3 demons, including Sullivan, Belial, and Levi, argue why they don't want to be the Demon King themselves. At the end, they push it to Sullivan, but he says that he wants to see his new grandson grow up and enjoy being with him, and this leads to them arguing about who has the cutest grandson. Ultimately, they end the meeting without deciding anything, but before Sullivan can walk out, Ameri's dad, Henry, walks in and shows a warrant to Sullivan and says that he is under arrest for crossing to the human realm illegally and takes him to jail. Sullivan calls home and tells Opera that he won't be back for some time and to take care of Iruma. He says that Iruma must be really worried about him and won't even be eating, but Opera reassures him that his grandson has had his dinner and is now playing his after-dinner video games on his PlayStation 666. The next day, Iruma and the others prepare for their battler's party, which is like the parents' day in the human world. Students stay the night at the school and their family visits them the next day at the event and see what they have been learning at the school. They all set up stalls and booths and set up an exhibition for their parents, and this makes everyone really excited and nervous at the same time. Back at the school, Sullivan appoints Caligo as the acting chairman and lets him look after things in his absence. Caligo wonders why the border patrol would hold Sullivan up like this suddenly, and says that something smells fishy, and so they should keep their guards up during the battler's party. On the other hand, Iruma gets an idea to create fireworks for their performance on that day and shares this idea with Kiro and others. He even asked Ameri for help by letting her borrow a manga volume with fireworks in it to show others. They work on it together, and we find out that Kiryu has the special magic ability of forming barriers, and that's how he has managed to survive up until now. They all do a bunch of experiments and eventually succeed in creating the fireworks and celebrate by having a pillow fight during the sleepover. They also tell each other horror stories, and Kiryu thanks everyone for joining his battler. After that, he walks out to talk to his old senpai, but we find out that he is actually talking to one of the 13 crowns named Bull, who is against Sullivan. He is the one who tipped the border patrol about Sullivan crossing over to the human realm, and he is planning to destroy Babbles in his absence. He tells Kiryu to make sure that the machine is ready for the event, and we also see Kiryu following in the footsteps of Aizen and Kabuto as he reveals his true nature with a slick back hairstyle. The next day marks the start of the battler's party, and the teachers announce that they will let the parents in the evening. The students have till then to finalize their preparations, and then goes on to announce the rewards for the top 3 battlers, with the top prize being a 2-time rank up for the captain and a single rank up for the other members of the battler. This excites everyone, and they all get to work. Alice, Carla, and Iruma set up their booth and prepare the fireworks cannon, but then they wonder where Kiryu was, and Iruma goes on to find him. He eventually finds him inside a secret room in the school building thanks to his ring attracting towards his necklace. His arrival surprises Kiryu as he was busy setting up his machine to launch an attack on the school at night, but he covers it up quickly and tells Iruma that this is his secret base where he takes in the view from above and it helps him calm down. Iruma says that he understands that feeling and says he will try his best to make them win the Battlers party so Kiryu can rank up. After that, they all go back down and finish setting up the fireworks cannon with the shell. After that, they all walk around to see what kind of stalls and attractions the other battlers have set up and enjoy the event with lots of food and crazy exhibitions. After walking around for quite some time, they notice the time for the party to start coming closer and decide to go and do final checks and decide when they will be launching their fireworks. While planning in their booth, Alice accidentally lights up the cannon and they all get down expecting the thing to shoot the firework, but to their surprise and relief, nothing happens. They look inside the cannon and notice that the shell is missing and wonder where it went. They also wonder where Kiryu went, and we see him walking back to his secret room with the shell in his slick back hairstyle. He says that it's about time and breaks the seal on his collar and releases all of his stored magical energy. The pressure from this release makes everyone in the area shocked, including Sullivan, who's being detained in the Border Patrol's office. Kiryu then casts a large barrier spell inside the school and makes a maze of barriers to lead all the students to one location. On the other hand, the students and teachers start noticing barriers suddenly appearing all over the school and realize that they are under attack. Seeing this, Ameri tells the student council to make sure that students don't panic, as that would result in unnecessary chaos and lead to more harm. Caligo uses Devicom's spell to connect to the news battler and tells the teacher there to announce that they have set up a game for the students and everyone is to gather in the central plaza. The winners will be rewarded with a special prize, and this calms the situation down for the time being. On the other hand, he tells the other teachers to look for a caster of this spell and wonders who could have done it himself. He says that to cast such a spell, one needs to be at least a rank 9 or rank 10, Yod Demon, and maybe that's why they had Sullivan detained so he can't break through this spell. After that, he uses a strong lightning attack and breaks through the barriers in his path, but they self-repair after a few seconds. He makes Robin follow him to the school's records room and looks through all the records to find out everyone who can use barrier magic. They eventually end up on Kiryu's profile and announce that he is their prime suspect. Meanwhile, Iruma, Alice, and Carla figure that the barriers look pretty similar to what Kiryu uses, and considering how he went missing with a shell suddenly, it must have something to do with him. Alice says that if he is behind all this, then he must have been planning this for a long time. Iruma says that he might know where he is, but they will have to find a way to bypass the barriers. Alice tells Carla to create a big sheet of paper and draws the whole map of the school from memory and says that it was on the prospectus. Carla says that she can create the paper dolls that she saw in Kiryu's Battler lab, and Alice uses his magic to spread them out and uses them to find out where all the barriers were. With that, they help Iruma get through all of them, and he eventually gets to the secret door wall where Kiryu is. He presses the button and tries to open the door behind it, but Kiryu keeps him from reaching it with a barrier. Iruma tries to push through, and suddenly the bar vanishes and the door opens up, making him fall inside. He looks at Kiryu and asks him if the barrier magic was his and why he was doing this. Kiryu confirms his suspicion and explains that he is gathering everyone in one spot so he can blow them all up alongside the school. Iruma looks at his dumb face and asks him why he would want to do that, and Kiryu decides to tell him his backstory. He reveals that he was born in a high-ranking family of demons known for their barriers and high amount of magical energy. Unfortunately for him, he was born with really little amount of magical energy, and this caused his family, including his mother, to shun him away. They eventually put him in a disciplinary school where they beat him up and bully him every day due to his failings, but then one day, a silver-haired girl walked up to him and offered to be his partner. She was kind to him and played with him all the time, and even called him cute. She shows him her good luck charm that she got from her grandma and let him touch it as well, but one day a bunch of bullies caught them both and tossed her good luck charm into the river. At the last moment, he used his magic to save the charm, but due to his weakness, the barrier fell apart and the charm got lost in the river. At that moment, he looked at the girl and saw the expression of utter despair on her face. She left the school after that day, but he stayed. He then says that when he saw her expression and the injustice in the society, it made his heart well up with emotions, and we all think that he must have felt bad and angry at the bullies, but instead, he reveals that at that moment, when he saw her face in despair, he almost felt like a girl from Food Wars eating one of those tasty foods. He explains that that was the day when he was reborn as a sadist who enjoys others' despair, and after that, he continued his life pursuing that emotion. He eventually ended up in Bambles, where he met Bull, who trained him and guided him towards the right direction and showed him the right way of living as a demon. He says that demons are meant to spread chaos and disaster, unlike those sissy smiling bunch at the bottom, and says that he will destroy this school and look at their sad expressions and enjoy it. He thinks that by now, Iruma must have given in to despair as well, but to his surprise, Iruma simply stands up like a Giga-Chad and goes on to remove the shell from the machine, which is about to explode like a bomb. He says that he has had a pretty rough life, and so he learned to find solutions and fix things himself, and to continue moving forward, and so he will save everyone and make them see the fireworks as well. He then opens the door and uses a spell to launch the shell into the air, but it gets stopped by the strongest layer of the barrier surrounding the school. Kirio says that only someone at Sullivan's level would be able to break through it, and Iruma uses the spell that Sullivan taught him to use only in emergencies, and it unleashes all the power in his ring and breaks through the barrier and makes the shell explode in the form of beautiful fireworks, making Kirio cry in despair himself. While all this is happening, Caligo and Robin make their way to the rooftop, and Robin uses his special magic ability to shoot an arrow towards the Border Patrol office with a message for Sullivan. Sullivan immediately gets up after getting it and says that he will be back for the investigation later on, and tells them all to sit down by releasing his insanely powerful demonic pressure. After that, he flies off towards the school and looks at the fireworks going off. The massive explosion causes small fireballs to rain down on the audience, but Sullivan saves them all by stopping time and moving all the fireballs to the side of the school. After that, he meets up with all the teachers and goes on to capture Kirio and hand him over to the authorities. Before leaving, Kirio tells Sullivan to deliver a message to Iruma for him, and tells him to thank Iruma on his behalf, saying the face of despair that he saw in his own reflection at the moment he destroying the barrier was really the best one he saw in his life, and that he truly had fun playing with him. After that, the Border Patrol takes Kirio away, and Sullivan goes on to wake Iruma up and carries him to the window, where he tells everyone that the fireworks were their battlers doing. With that, the evening before the party ends and the family day begins. We meet Carla's family and Alice's mom, as well as Sabro's little sister. Sullivan and Opera accompany Iruma in the party, and for the first time in his life, Iruma genuinely feels blessed to have a family that cares for him. After the event, everyone casts their votes, and the time to announce the winners for the party arrives. The succubus babbler wins the third prize and gets a luxurious room for their activities. The second prize goes to the new magic babbler, and they receive a year's supply of Drake's bathtub water for further research. And finally, the first prize goes to Broadcast Babbler, who persevered through unexpected situations and continues broadcasting for 2 days non-stop. The captain of the Battler goes up 2 ranks, while the other members gain a +1 to their ranks as a reward as well. With this, the Battler's party comes to a close, but Caligo stops everyone and announces that due to unexpected circumstances, this time around they will be giving out another special prize to another Battler, which puts their lives on the line to protect the student body. He then calls the magic apparatus Babbler forward, and Alice and Carla choose Iruma to be the recipient of the reward. Caligo looks at him and tells him to be more careful, and that he should rely on his seniors and teachers more, and then promotes him to rank 3, Kimmel. After that, they all have a huge celebration, and soon things go back to normal. Iruma continues his manga reading sessions with Ameri while playing with Alice and Carla in his free time. One day, Ameri notices her father in the school, and she cuts their manga reading sessions short. Iruma walks out wondering what the reason could be, but then he notices someone following behind him, and it turns out to be none other than Henry himself. They both walk out and sit on the benches to talk to each other, and Henry tells him how he once met a human and made sure that they get back to their world safely. He took care of all the paperwork and erased their memory of the netherworld, and then tells Iruma if he needs help, he just needs to tell him. Iruma tries to act dumb and says that he doesn't know anything about demons, but just then, Ameri jumps in and introduces Henry as her father. She then praises Iruma and introduces him to her dad as a great demon, and this makes him even more curious. When Henry asks about how they know each other, Ameri says that they often talk to each other and have tea after classes, and to keep her secret about reading the forbidden sacred text passed down in her family. She says that they talk about love and relationships. This makes Henry lose his mind as he thinks about Iruma taking his daughter away from him, and he starts acting crazy. Mary grabs him and rushes away to the infirmary, while Alice and Carla jump in and start talking to Iruma about Kirio and how they will be there for him if he ever needs to talk about anything. After that, Iruma walks back to his class with them and thinks that he will just make sure that no one finds out about him being a human so he can continue this happy life. A few days later, Iruma learns about the concept of dem idols from his classmates as they talk about the upcoming date and night concert of the popular dem idol Kuromu. Alice explains that all demons have a stress meter which determines their evil cycle. Every once in a while, this stress meter reaches its maximum capacity, and it makes demons do evil things to release their pent-up stress. Normally, demons engage in fun activities like sports and video games to keep themselves happy. One form of entertainment is concerts held by cute demons who sing songs and dance along and relieve the stress of large crowds of demons who cheer them on. Among them, Kuromu is one of the most popular up-and-coming dem idols who is known for her cute looks. Her concert is almost always fully booked and the tickets are sold via lottery. The concerts sometimes host a meet and greet as well, where lucky winners can get a chance to meet Kuromu one-on-one. Just then, the broadcast battler makes an announcement and calls for Iruma and his friends to come to their room. There, the broadcast battler's leader gives them 3 tickets for Kuromu's upcoming concert and reveal that they got it through a friend of theirs and that it is their way of making up for taking their position as the winners of the battler's party, as they would have surely won if they made Kiryo's actions and their contributions public. Iruma and the others happily accept them and decide to go to the concert. On the other hand, we see Kuromu in her backstage room after a performance as she takes off her wig and wears her glasses to reveal her real identity as one of Iruma's classmates, Karori. She feels extremely jealous of Iruma as he has been taking the spotlight in the demon realm recently with all his shenanigans. She recalls her origin as being from a family of ice magic users who are well known for their icy cold expressions as well. Since childhood, she realized that she was really cute and it made everyone around her praise her and treat her in a special way. That's why she decided to bank on this characteristic of hers and grow a career as a dem idol. After that, she goes out for her next performance and notices Iruma in the audience and wonders what he is doing there. After that, Iruma ends up winning the meetup lottery and gets to have a one-on-one session with her in her backstage room. There, he ends up recognizing her as his classmate and reveals that her unique way of tucking her thumbs inside her fists gave her away alongside her glasses, her ice magic, and the schedule that she showed him. This makes her really surprised, and she wonders if Iruma is actually a fan of hers. Iruma says that he really admires her for being able to not stand out when she wants while he stands out even when he doesn't want to, and this makes her really mad as she thinks that Iruma is better at attracting the spotlight than her even without trying. She uses her magic to freeze him, but the overload causes her to collapse and get a severe fever. Iruma tries to look after her and calls her manager in. She says that if this goes on, Karori would not be able to make it in time for her next performance, and to heal her, they would need someone from her family to come over, and given how far they live, it would take hours before they can make it here. She further adds that her fans would be disappointed at how much that would hurt Karori, but Iruma tells her not to worry, and goes on to call his friends Alice and Carla and asks for their help. They all settle on forming a quick dem idol band that supports Kuromu and crossdress with the help of Carla's magic and rock the stage with their insane demi-dance moves. After some time, Karori comes back to her senses and gets told that her parents came to heal her, and they said that they would be cheering her on from home like usual. Karori smiles and runs out to confront her disappointed fans, but then she becomes surprised to see Iruma and his friends totally slaying on the dance floor. This makes her jealous and excited at the same time, and she goes back to dress up and enters the stage in the middle of the performance and concludes the show with a banger. After this successful concert, she thanks Iruma and says that she won't lose to him in terms of securing the spotlight, and adds that she hopes that they can stay friends from here on out. Iruma agrees, and they all go back to their routines, with everyone talking about the mysterious dem idol group that showed up on the stage with Kuromu in her last concert. After this day, Iruma goes back to thinking about what Henry said to him and wonders if he really wants to go back to the human world. He spends the next few days in deep thought about this matter, and this makes Elise and Carlo really worried about him. They think that he is feeling down and decide to cheer him up by cooking delicious foods for him themselves. They both spend the next few days refining their cooking techniques and eventually come up with food made with love and little skill and present it to Iruma for a taste test. Iruma likes both dishes and makes them try each other's dish as well, and they both decide to call it a draw. On the other hand, Iruma accepts that he likes his new life among the demons and decides to continue living here after all. The next morning, while taking his breakfast, Sullivan fills his ring up with magic once again and sends him off to school with his friends as usual. At the class, Caligo says that they should prepare for their end-of-term exam and to not disturb any teachers. After that, they all go to a next class where Iruma learns the transforming magic Chirusel, which enables him to turn a green frog into an African Gigachad. He thinks that if he manages to master magic, he will have a lot of fun, and rubs his ring while walking through the corridor. But then the shadowy spirit that resides in his ring suddenly appears, and he wonders why it came out as Sullivan fed it just this morning. This time the spirit actually talks back to him, but to both their surprise, even it doesn't know why or how it became able to do that. Iruma quickly runs into a room, and they both start thinking about what the cause of all this could be, but then the spirit tells him that it wanted to scold him about not using his magic like an idiot. It says that if he continues this behavior, then it won't let him use the magic stored in the ring. It then tells him to get better at controlling his magic and teaches him the basics of it and makes him use the Chirusal spell on it to make it look like a mini-human demon. It names itself Alikard and tells Iruma to call it Ali. After that, Ali makes Iruma practice his spell and makes him transform his uniform. Meanwhile, we see Ameri looking at the poster with cross-dressed Iruma and Kuromu and wonders why the mysterious idol looks so much like Iruma. She then thinks that Iruma would never dress like that and walks outside to patrol, but then she stumbles upon Iruma with his uniform transformed into a frilly girl uniform. This makes her go all red and she runs away thinking he's gay. After that, Iruma talks to Ali to show himself to Ameri to clear the confusion, but he says that he's an unknown phenomenon and if people find out about him, it would rip him apart and do experiments on him and says that he should know better how being rare among demons feel like. Iruma agrees and then decides to go ask Sullivan about a spirit living in the ring being able to talk, but he just thinks that Iruma has a fever and makes Opera give him tea and delicious food and puts him to sleep. The next day, Iruma goes to the library and they trace out all the events that have passed since he got the ring and find out that Ali started gaining consciousness around the time he ranked up to Bet. They conclude that they might be able to find more out if Iruma ranks up and makes this their next goal. With that, they call it a day, but then Iruma realizes that he never went to clear the misunderstanding with Ameri. This confusion keeps going on, and Ameri decides to whip Iruma back in shape herself. While doing her student council duties, she realizes that Iruma's battler needs a 3rd year or 3 Daleth level demons in it according to their school rules. She calls Iruma in and tells him that they will be putting their battler on a hiatus until they meet the requirements. During this time, they are to participate in other battlers and earn their approval, and they can get their battler up and running this way as well. Alice is put in the new magic battler, Carla is handed over to the video game's battler for babysitting, while Ameri takes Iruma into the student council, as it is a battler as well. After that, she makes him go through the tough routine that all the members adhere to like military dogs, and Iruma gets to see a more confident and admirable side of Ameri, a close in contrast to her more feminine side during their regular manga reading sessions. One day, while making her rounds, Ameri receives a message from the broadcast battler to come to room number 3, and when she goes there, she gets ambushed by a mysterious guy who sprays her with some kind of spell-infused perfume that makes her collapse. Soon the student council finds out about this, and they go to find Ameri and find her lying on the ground. When she gets up, she seems super ladylike, shy, and mellow, unlike her usually bold and confident personality. She asks for a more conservative uniform and acts sweet and soft with her fellows, and this makes everyone worried. The student council likes her this way as well because she doesn't overwork them like a black company manager, but they also worry about her effectiveness as the student council president. With that in mind, they start looking for the culprit who called her out to room number 3 and goes to the disciplinary battler who is their prime suspect for being jealous of Ameri and her position as the student council president. The leader of the disciplinary battler, Romir, is a dashing yet annoying demon who is as cowardly as he is self-obsessed. Rivaling Vegeta in his narcissism, he takes advantage of this opportunity and starts a petition for re-election of the student council president. Everyone worries about Ameri's position due to her current state, but seeing this, she tries to step up and gets changed to her old uniform and says that she will try her best to meet everyone's expectations. On the other hand, Ali tells Iruma that the spell that transformed Ameri's personality is almost undone, but there seems to be something in her own heart that is clinging to it. After changing, Ameri tries to act bold, but her facade comes undone in front of Iruma, and she falls on her knees. She says that perhaps it would be best for her to step down and live an ideal life as a normal student with him as her friend. She says that if he accepts her as she is right now, she would gladly do that, but Iruma tells her that she once told him about the importance of having ambition and asks her about hers. She says that she wants to make this school the best there is and to make everyone attending be proud of being demons. Iruma tells her then give it her all and that her friends, including him, would be supporting her regardless of the outcome. This motivates her, and she goes out to compete against Romir for the position of the student council president. At first, it looks bad for her due to her shyness and Romir being loud and flamboyant, but then she slowly starts getting emotional and regains her confidence and breaks through the spell. She then delivers a motivating speech and wins the re-elections and makes Iruma and others really proud of her. In the meantime, Alice uses Clara as a sniffing dog and makes her lead him to the perpetrator, who turns out to be the president of Ameri's fan club, Chanel. He says that he wanted to see the bold president be more ladylike just once in her life, and that's why he developed this special perfume, and Ameri decides to give him a special reward for this by making him do the student council drill 50 times in one go. After that, she thanks Romir for pushing her back to a corner, and that she enjoyed the challenge, and then goes back to her duties. Once all this is taken care of, she calls Iruma and says that he has passed the training and that he is free to reinstate the magic apparatus babbler. She also asks him if he would like to stay in the student council, but he says that he has his own ambitions as well, and that perhaps one day someone might decide to return to the babbler, so he wants to be there while thinking about Kiryu. After this busy day at school, Iruma comes home to Sullivan and Opera, throwing him a welcome home party and celebrates him succeeding his training test at the student council. Sullivan suggests that Iruma calls some of his friends for a sleepover, and this excites him a lot. He calls Alice and Carla and prepares for their arrival, and they all enjoy together a lot. They play Dance Dance Revolution, and Sullivan even tries to act cool in front of them with Opera's help using some of his crazy magic. After a fun night, Alice and Carla return home and Iruma goes to sleep wondering about Ameri and how he still has a lot to learn about demons and the personality-changing cycles. Ali hears this and decides to help Iruma by making him experience the same thing and casts a personality-changing evil cycle spell on him, which makes Iruma wake up as a total bad boy. He begins his day by showing Opera his place and then rides to the school in his carriage alongside his servants Alice and Carla. He winks at the girls and wins all their hearts and even makes Carla sit down with her face red. While this is going on, he and his classmates notice students from the other classes throwing their garbage near their class like usual. Iruma decides to burn it all using demon-level magic, and then says that it's time they get themselves a nice classroom. With that ambition, he walks to Caligo's office with his classmates and puts in an official request for change of classroom. He asks him why they are called misfits and treated differently, so Caligo takes out his notebook and points out how Iruma committed physical violence on his day 1, Jazz was reported for robbery, Sabro attacked a teacher, Kame is a pervert, Agares is always sleeping, and Kurori is perfectly fine. Iruma asks how all that makes them misfits, and they get in an argument, but Caligo ends it by saying they don't have any other spare classroom anyways. At this, Iruma responds by saying that they still have the legendary classroom of their previous demon king, the Royal One, and says that the misfits belong there. Caligo uses a thunder spell to intimidate them and tells them to know their place, but Iruma shuts him down by proposing that he will get a signature of approval from everyone in the school's faculty, and then he will have no choice but to give them the class. Caligo accepts this proposition and says that he will give his approval as well if he manages to get the approval of every single member of the school's faculty. With that, they all walk out, and Iruma takes his classmates to the Royal One and asks them about their ambitions and desires. He pumps them up with lots of motivation and makes them want the Royal One as well, and then sends them off to get as many seals of approval as they can. First of all, he takes Jazz with him and goes to Caligo and teases him with a familiar summoning seal and says that he was thinking about getting his familiar seal as that would be easy. While he distracts Caligo with it, Jazz uses his special ability and steals Caligo's daily planner from inside his coat. After that, they go to Momonoki-sensei and use her love towards Caligo as a weapon to make an exchange of Caligo's planner for her seal of approval. At the same time, Aloser and Carla go to persuade their magical knowledge teacher. Furcus and Alicer gets her seal with his big brain discussions with the professor and reveals that he is actually really smart. Kay manages to secure old man Morax's vote with his cultured gossips. Gap and Agares help their Diabotini teacher. Susie, with some guarding for her vote, lied, and Elizabetta get their astrology teacher Oswald's approval by beating him in a board game using their trickery and teamwork, while Sebro gets Blushenko's approval, who was the teacher he attacked on his first day, by bowing down and apologizing to him. The others also help with reaching out to other teachers and getting their approvals, including Iruma going to his grandpa to get his signature. Ultimately, they manage to get the approvals of all 36 teachers besides Caligo and walk into his office to make him fulfill his promise. Caligo looks at all the stamps and says that while they have the approval of all the teachers besides him, they don't have any stamps from the other faculty members like the janitors and the mess cook, etc. He says that he told them that he would only give them their approval once they have the approval of every member of the other faculties in the school and turns them away, but just then, all the workers in the school walk in and give Iruma their seal of approval while thanking him for all the help he provides them with on a daily basis. This shocks everyone, and they finally manage to force Caligo to give his approval as well and get him to open the Royal One for them. Once inside, Iruma walks up to the royal throne chair that was reserved for the previous demon king when he was a student and sits on it with a wide, smug face. The next morning, Iruma wakes up and goes back to his usual self with all the memories of what he did while being a bad boy. He goes on to apologize to everyone for the rest of the day and asks them for forgiveness for causing them trouble and acting so rudely, but they all laugh it off and tease him back while telling him to act bold and smile like he did yesterday. To celebrate them getting the Royal One as their classroom, they all take a picture and make Iruma sit on the royal chair once again. A few days later, Caligo announces that summer vacation would be coming up and advises everyone to be more focused on their lessons and to do their summer tasks daily. Hearing this, everyone starts celebrating and making plans for the vacation, but Caligo shuts them all up by reminding them of their end of terminus exam before the vacation. Alice looks at Carla and the others and says that they should learn from Iruma, who is sure to be well prepared, but much to his shock, Iruma looks just as troubled as the others, if not more. Later on, he reveals that he never really got a chance to study, so he doesn't know how good he will be able to do in these exams. Alice says that getting good marks on the exam can help you rank up, while failing it will lead to the loss of a rank level. This makes him really worried, including Ali, who says that if Iruma ranks down, he might end up losing his sense of self and body as well. With that, they all begin studying together and test Iruma with a basic quiz, in which he manages to fail spectacularly to the point where even Carla feels sorry for him. Seeing this, they both decide to help him with his studies, and soon their classmates join them as well. During this time, Ameri sends Skinel to the magic apparatus battler, as well because of him being too much of a trouble for her at the student council, and Iruma being Iruma, accepts the request without thinking twice. After that, he continues his studies, but it doesn't help him much. The customs and concepts of the demon world prove too complex and alien for him to understand, and he struggles with them. But then he ends up going through a quiz from the mythical zoology workbook, which includes questions about mythical creatures like human beings and animals in the human world, and Iruma manages to score a perfect score. This boosts his morale when everyone praises him, and they all decide to form a class study group. With that, they head towards the teacher's office to see their demonic history teacher, Dali, but he seems to be on a break due to going through his evil cycle, and Balam Sensei is filling in for him. Balam is famous for being a weirdo who uses his magic and limbs to feel every living thing he comes across, as he is keen on studying them. He's also the one who wrote the mythical zoology workbook, and while touching Iruma, he notices that he doesn't have a wing root on his back and runs away with him to other teachers. Nariki makes him take his shirt off to see what was up, but Ali comes in with a save and shapeshifts himself to show that Iruma has really small wings. After that, they both walk out, and Balam decides to show his disfigured mouth to Iruma and apologizes to him for embarrassing him in front of everyone like that. After that, he takes him to his lab and gets him some tea, and Iruma ends up accidentally spilling the beans about him being a human. Fortunately for him, Balam is actually a soft and kind-hearted demon who is interested in humans as a scientist and worries for him as an endangered species. They both become friends pretty quickly, and Balam helps Iruma with learning about the demon world and magical system, and Iruma also gets to learn a lot from his classmates in the study group. During this time, we also find out that Caligo and Balam used to be classmates, and they are both at the top of their grade with rank 8, Chet. After a whole week of studying like this, the time for their end of terminus tests comes around, and Caligo proctors them all. Thanks to all of them putting in so much effort, they all pass the exam, with a bunch of them going up a rank as well. Alistair gets a 2-fold rank increase for topping his grade, and Iruma manages to improve his grades the most despite not earning a rank up. After that, they all celebrate with a party, and the girls decide to have a girls' talk session and invite Ameri to join them as well. After Iruma passes the exam, Sullivan decides to throw a party for him and wonders where they should go for vacation, but Opera asks him for a reward for him helping him earlier with looking cool in front of Iruma's friends, and suggests that he make Caligo go to all the students' homes and have a parents-teachers meeting. Sullivan agrees, and Caligo ends up having a total mess of a day because of them, but we also find out that he is really attentive and cares for all his students a lot, as he keeps notes of everyone and looks after them well. Finally, he goes to see Iruma and Sullivan. And there we find out that Opera used to be Caligo's senior during his school years, and in fact bullied him and made him his lackey during that time. Caligo still suffers from those memories, and Opera enjoys bullying him during his visit now as well. The next morning, Caligo takes revenge by giving everyone extra homework for the summer, and shows them their sadistic nature, and this marks the beginning of their summer vacation. The next day, Iruma wakes up and goes outside to see all of his classmates standing at his door. He asks them about it, and they tell him about planning to go to the Walter Amusement Park and invites him to come along. Iruma quickly dresses up, and they all go to Walter Park. Jazz and others say that they were planning on having a lot of fun, but then they look towards Caligo, Balam, and Opera standing behind them, as they were sent by Sullivan as bodyguards for Iruma. Iruma explains that this is his first time going so far from home, so his grandpa got worried. He also notices that Alistair isn't there, and his friends explain that he went to some conference with Furka Sensei, and they seem to be hitting it off. After that, he says that he's happy that Ameri was able to make it there, as he invited her at the last minute. Ameri complains that she thought it was going to be just the two of them, but then she checks the messages again and confirms that it was all just in her head. Opera also teases Caligo and says that they will help him overcome his annoyance of crowded places, much to his horror. With that, they all enter the park, but the teachers sit them all down and form 3 groups, so it's easier for them to monitor them. Carla and Lai propose that the team which has the most fun should get a prize from the teachers, and after getting teased by his fellow teachers, Caligo accepts it, but says that the losing team will have their homework doubled for the summer. After that, all draw lots and form teams with Iruma and Alice, ending up on Balam's team alongside Aegir's and Sebro. The girls gather with Opera, watching over them, and the rest of the boys get their homework dreams and hopes crushed as Caligo takes charge of them. After that, they all walk into different directions to take rides, and Iruma's group notices a crowd of people surrounding a gay-looking demon who turns out to be none other than Romir. They ask him what he was doing there and finds out that he is actually the son of the park's owner and was being made to observe the park under their butler's protection. On the other hand, we find out that deep underground there is the Ouroboros prison, which houses 1,600 criminals whose hatred and magical energy is used to power the rides in Walter Park. Among them, we see Kirio as well, and he seems to be cooking something again as he gathers some demons in the underground stress relieving pit and tells them about the secret organization of terrorists called the Musashino Crew, also known as the Six Fingers, who are planning on destroying the Walter Park soon, and that will be their chance to make their escape. Meanwhile, Iruma's classmates enjoy their stay at the park with Opera's group doing a photo shoot at a closed shop run by a small grandpa and a fashionable demon. Caligo's group has him wear fancy park merchandise and treats him to a lot of snacks in hopes of not getting their homework doubled, and in doing so they run into a couple of game shop employees who invite them to play the shooting game. On the other hand, Balam's group runs after Iruma and Romir, who go from one ride to another, and Iruma's seems to be enjoying himself beyond words. But in all this blind enjoyment, he manages to get lost and ends up at the black market alleyway run by all sorts of shady figures. He tries to call his friends to come get him, but his phone battery ends up being dead, and soon demons start pulling him aside for some stranger danger candy. Just then, the silver-haired girl jumps in and protects him from the shady demon by telling him to get away from her younger brother, and walks Iruma out to the rides and tells him about the missing children office. She also treats him to some ice cream and helps him cheer up with some rides, and Iruma finds out that she loves animals but can't touch them because they get afraid of her. He tells her a trick that he learned from Balam and helps her get friendly with animals, and this makes her smile really brightly. Just then, she looks at the Ferris wheel and says that they would be able to search the park more efficiently, and takes him to the top of the ride. There, Iruma thanks her for helping him and says that he really enjoyed his time playing with her. Just then, Iruma notices his friends and gets down to meet up with them. The silver-haired lady silently takes her leave and vanishes into one of the dark alleyways behind them, and we find out that she's called Shida, and she's also a part of the park's staff who works in the background to help people enjoy their time there. After she's gone, Iruma ends up playing with some kids at the park as punishment from Romir for getting lost, and there, the kids play pretend and act as the Six Fingers, and Alice explains that they are a group of terrorists who believe in going back to the old ways of barbarism. While playing with all of them, Aegir becomes tired and says that he has had enough, but Romir walks up to him and says that it's all because he's wearing a stupid mask, and takes it off, revealing his utterly immaculate and angelic eyes. His blinding aura makes Romir freak out, and he covers him up and takes him to a quiet room to put him to sleep so he doesn't take away the spotlight from him. Meanwhile, we see Shida and 5 other members of the park's staff gather and reveal their true identity as the Six Fingers as they unleash a bunch of really powerful beasts on the Walter Park, including a dragon to destroy the park and rescue their target, Kirio, from the underground prison. On the other hand, Iruma and the others go inside the quiet room where Romir took Aegir's and start looking around. Aegir's gets annoyed and falls off his cloud, but notices that the floor is warm for some reason. He expands his special ability and finds out that there are 3 spots in the park where the land is really warm, and just then he notices the 3 magical eggs hatching and summoning the 3 magical beasts that the Six Figure dropped. He uses his ability to change the floor and protects everyone from getting smashed by flying rubble, and looks up alongside Iruma to see the massive Karmi dragon ravaging the park. Opera's group faces the Panther Rat while Caligo's party encounters the Mountain Blue Monster. They all run towards Caligo, but he says that he is not having fun and might fault them. They say that doesn't matter right now and ask for his help, and his sadistic ass decides to give them a live lesson on combination attacks. He tells them to deal with the monster on their own and watches them from the side while sitting under some shade. After hearing this, they all run away from the monster, but it catches up to them and throws a massive boulder at them. It looks like it's the end for them, but then Gap jumps in with his Windblade special ability and cuts through the rock like the world's strongest swordsman. Jazz, being the smartest of the bunch, quickly realizes that Gap's Windblade is the only offensive spell that they have, and worries that they won't be able to make it out of this one alive. But thinking back on Caligo's words, he decides to give it a shot and plays a combo attack with his friends. Lyde steals the monster's vision in one eye while Gabe jumps in with his wind blade. Kane distracts the monster with his friendship spell, which lets him talk in and understand all languages including that of monsters as well, while Jazz supports Gop with a low-level fireball spell. The attack does absolutely nothing to the monster other than making it even more mad at them, and it starts chasing after them even harder. They try to ask Caligo for help once again, but he gives them some abstract BS of advice and leaves them to their cursed fate. Meanwhile, the Six Fingers invade the underground prison and defeat the vice jailer there known as Triton the Handshaker, infamous for his neck-breaking grip. Back on the surface, Lyde, Kame, and Gop ask Jazz for help as their elder brother because he's a Gimel ranker, and we find out that being the youngest brother in his family and getting bullied by his elders, Jazz always wanted to have younger siblings and protect them, and them calling him Big Bro makes him say yes instantly. He then starts thinking about ways to get them out of this situation, and this is when Caligo reminds him of the small whistle around his neck and asks if that won't be enough to help them. On the other hand, we see Iruma looking at the park's staff helping people get out in safety, but ignoring kids in danger who they think are already done for. This lack of empathy makes him really mad, and he says that he's angry about it. He also figures out that these monsters are summoned creatures, and that this must be a planned attack thanks to Balam's opinion. He decides to help the children himself and runs towards them, while dodging all the falling rubble using his Ultra Instinct. While he is busy rescuing them, Saburo and Alice decide to jump in and fight the dragon while Ageres and Balam's sensei help Iruma with evacuating the trapped children. Balam worries for the students, but when he looks at Saburo and Alice playfully overwhelming the disaster grade monster while arguing with each other, he feels happy for the future of the Demonkind and Babels. On the other hand, Opera fights the Panther Rat monster and tells Ameri to evacuate the other girls. After that, Opera starts fighting the monster, but Ameri joins them soon and offers her help as the Student Council president and rank 6 Vav Demon. Meanwhile, Carla manages to get herself caught by the monster as she tries to help them in her silly ways instead of evacuating the Babel Zone. On the other hand, Jazz goes on with his plan and gets his friends to deliver him near the monster's ear and then blows the magic whistle right into his head, knocking him out. They all start rejoicing after their victory, but the monster suddenly gets up and punches them down. It looks like this is the end for them, but Caligo jumps in and stops the monster's attack with one hand and then defeats it using his lightning ability, Cerberus. At the evacuation center, Karori decides to cheer everyone up as Kuromu, and back at Opera's part of the park, we see Ameri use her special bloodline ability, Romantista, which allows her to break all her limits and be able to do anything as long as she isn't intimidated. It's a double-edged sword which makes her beliefs realize, and thinking she can defeat the enemy grants her enough strength to do so. She eventually manages to defeat the monster and impresses Opera enough for them to offer her a future job at Sullivan's house as their apprentice. At first, Ameri declines, but when she realizes that it means she will be living with Iruma, she says that she wants Opera to keep the offer open for future. On the other hand, Alice and Saburo get hit by the dragon's attack due to their carelessness. Saburo protects Alice and says that he did it to be cool because that's what the future Demon King would do. They both become friends and help each other out until they run out of all magical energy, and then Balam decides to jump in and summons his wooden dragon pet infused with his insane amount of magical energy like Hashirama from Naruto. He then bites the dragon down and completely overwhelms him and wins the fight with ease. With this, they all think that the battle is over, but the other monsters suddenly turn to mana and fuse with the dragon to create a hybrid monster. The monster shoots an energy beam at them, but Opera and Ameri jump in just in time to protect everyone, and Balam asks Opera to help him just like the old times. Opera says that they might need their third lackey as well and summons Caligo using Iruma's seal, and they all go on to instantly one-shot the monster with their prime abilities. After that, instead of turning into loot like in a video game, the monster decides to pull a perfect cell on them by collecting all of its energy to unleash a final blast of energy, blowing them all up. It faces the evacuation center to take as many demons down with it, but then Romir arrives on the spot and uses his charisma ability to make the monster face him. The monster unleashes a massive blast, but Iruma jumps right in front of it and decides to absorb the attack using his ring. Alucard advises Iruma on how to empower him so he can take all of this mana in one go, and makes him cast a silly spell that sucks the monster's energy and leaves it like you all feel after a long session with your socks. After that, they all go to the Walter Parks Hotel, and there we meet Romir's dad, as well as Sullivan arrives on the scene to see if Iruma was fine. They all decide to spend the next few days there with Romir's dad and Sullivan making it public that Iruma is a hero who saved everyone at Walter Park. On the other hand, we see Kirio making it out of the jail with the Six Fingers bowing in front of him. They deliver a message to him from Bull, who tells him to come back immediately. Kiryu also erases the memories of his fellow inmates as he takes joy in seeing their faces in despair as they realize that they won't be getting out of there like Kiryu. He also finds out that Iruma is the one who ruined their plan of destroying the park and thinks that it must be fate for them to be eternal rivals. On the other hand, we see Iruma being celebrated by everyone at the park as their savior and the news attracting lots of reporters and attraction towards him. Later that night, he walks out to take a breather from all the noise and Ameri decides to follow him as well. She thinks about the romantic scene she saw in the manga that she has and asks Iruma to go out with her sometime, just the two of them. Soon Alice and Carla join them as well, and Iruma accepts her request, and this makes her fall unconscious out of shyness. The next morning, they all decide to take their leaves, but Iruma suffers from fame and success and wonders where they can go to avoid the reporters. This is when Carla decides to invite them to her house. With that, Alice and Iruma decide to stay at Carla's house and meet her crazy yet loving family. They enjoy their stay there while experiencing their wild ways in the mysterious forests and the mountains, and also get to embarrass her by going through her picture book, including her baby pictures. A few days later, Ameri's dad comes to the house and tells Iruma that he is to immediately return to his house as requested by Sullivan, as the border patrol has restrained the reporters from going near his house. At the same time, we see Ameri planning a full-fledged date with Iruma and asks him out on an aquarium and pool date. They both spend their day together, and Ameri tries to recreate various scenes from the romance manga she reads, but all of her attempts fail as she realizes that she is taller than Iruma and is just too strong to be cute even if she tries to be that. But at the end of the day, she hurts herself a little while saving Iruma from a water beast, and Iruma asks if she is able to walk. Feeling sad about her failed romantic approaches, she sulks and asks if he would carry her if she says that she can't, and to her surprise, Iruma says yes and uses a magic spell to make her lighter and carries her out princess style. This makes her really happy, and it turns out to be a successful date for them. After that, Iruma spends most of his summer vacation doing the double homework that everyone in the class got thanks to Caligo being a sadistic ass. Sullivan says that they all won the competition of having the most fun at the park and makes Caligo treat them to a fancy meal. Caligo agrees but says that it means that they all failed at the same time as well and doubles their homework. After Iruma is done with his homework, Sullivan decides to take him out for shopping, and they both enjoy their day out together, getting clothes and books and stuff for the final term before them getting promoted to second year. While walking around with Sullivan, Iruma overhears some demons talking about Sullivan not becoming the Demon King for some reason, and this makes Iruma ask Sullivan about what one needs to do to become a Demon King and why he hasn't become one. This makes Sullivan really surprised. At first, it makes him recall the time before the last Demon King, Dirkila, suddenly vanished. He used to act as his right-hand man and oversaw the demon world with him. He tells Iruma that the Demon King is the one who rules the whole of the Netherworld. He is the one who makes the laws and customs of the Netherworld, and thus the Netherworld becomes the representation of what kind of a person the Demon King is. He then asks Iruma to look around and tell him what kind of a person Dirkila was according to him, and Iruma says that he must be a great ruler as everyone there looks happy. Sullivan agrees and says that he's not yet sure that he might be able to live up to that title, and that's why he hasn't taken up the role. He then says that he would still be interested in seeing Iruma become the Demon King and what kind of a netherworld he would create, and this makes Iruma wonder about the question as well. With that, they call it a day and go back home until Iruma wakes up the next day and goes to the school with Alice and Carla for their new term. But when they arrive at their class, Caligo makes a special announcement for the students of the Royal One that all of them must become Daleth before advancing to second year, as this is the requirement of those studying in the Royal One, or else the class would be taken away from them, and this makes all of them really surprised and worried. To make this possible, they group all the Royal One students in pairs and then assign special teachers to each one of them to bring out the most of their potential. Alice and Sabro get Balam as their leader, Carla and Elizabetta get Miss Rame as their teacher, Furfur takes Aloser and Jazz under his non-existent Fur, Agers and Gap get Vapor, while Kame and Karore get Mr. Hat as their tutor. At the end, Lyde and Iruma are left and they wonder who's going to take care of them while looking at Caligo, but he tells them that their special tutor would be green-haired noob Robin. With this, all their lessons begin, and they aim to compete for rank-ups in the upcoming Harvest Festival, which is like the Chunin exams of the Demon World, but as an extracurricular activity. Eventually, Lyde and Iruma get to meet Robin's relative named Bachiko, who's known for her archery and accuracy during the last Demon War. She says that she only came there because Lord Sullivan asked her to, and goes on to make both of them her lackeys instead of training them. Soon Lyde decides to leave and goes to train with Robin, who decides to up his resilience by making him play video games all night long and not letting him win or sleep even once. On the other hand, Iruma continues to act as Bachiko's maid and servant, and does everything from serving her tea to doing her laundry. 1 week later, they all gather together to tell each other about how tough the training was and how they were getting through it. This motivates Iruma, and he decides to train without complaining as well. On the other hand, Sullivan asked Bachiko about how the training was coming along, and she remembers that that was a thing and decides to get serious with Iruma. She then takes him to the new magical apparatus battler and says that this is the place which can craft Iruma's special weapon, and acts like this is some mysterious place, but Iruma tells her that he's part of the battler, and that ruins her act altogether. After that, they go in to find the president's simp, Chanel, who has successfully managed to fill the place up with all sorts of random tech. Bachiko tells Iruma to find a core for his bow and tells him to work on visualizing his goals to form a bow that suits him and only him. Iruma eventually manages to do that thanks to Ellie's inspirational words and conjures a cool-ass bow worthy of the Demon King. With that, their training continues for the next 2 weeks, and finally the day of the Harvest Festival arrives, and we see the Misfits class walk in like a bunch of cool-ass anime protagonists after a 2-year time skip. Beat up from their training and with their new uniforms, they all participate in the festival and decide to work in pairs like they were trained as. Iruma teams up with Lyde, who has now learned the real meaning of being resilient and has trained his senses to be more observant and quick on his feet. The festival comprises of a large-scale forest hunt spanning 4 days where participants are to enter the forest via one of the 4 routes, and they can't leave the forest before the festival ends. They will earn points based on different fruits, vegetables, and prey that they hunt. Bargaining and stealing is also allowed, but fighting each other is not. The harvest can be turned over to special collection points in the forest that are located at specific distances from each other. The bigger and stronger the prey, the more points you get for them, with a rumor about a legendary leaf floating around with a value of over 100,000 points alone. Alice and Sabra decide to go after that while hunting the boss-class monsters, but then they get ambushed by a couple of senior students called the Dorodoro Brothers, who have been holding back on their promotions. On the other hand, we see Karori and Kame making the monsters in the forest bring fruits and vegetables over to them as they rule them using their highly trained taming skills learned under Mr. Hat, who locked them up in cages with a bunch of wild animals and made them live among them all this time. Aloser and Jazz cheat a bunch of students and trick them into giving them all of their points as they learn the dark ways of survival in the underworld thanks to Furfur. Iruma and Lai decide to play it smart and slow as Iruma decides to go into his Bear Grylls mode as he acts upon his PTSD from being poor and made to work every minute in his old life for basic survival. He focuses on gathering the fruits and vegetables for their meals, as they would be spending the next 4 days there as well instead of cashing them in for points. Lai, being skeptical, decides to stash some points with him still, but then they get ambushed by Carla and Elizabetta, who have been polishing their feminine charms. Elizabetta manages to rip Lyda off of all of his points, while Carla tires Iruma out using her new Dream World ability and making him play with her for a long time. After that, she joins up with Elizabetta, and they walk away with 5,400 points. With the first day coming to an end, the students start getting in trouble due to their bad ration management skills and even get injured by some monsters. Robin and some other teachers stay on the lookout to save them and heal them, while Kalego stands by to save stupid nudes like Robin, who made him trouble while trying to save students. At the same time, we see a bunch of girls running away from a big monster as they find a massive mansion in the middle of the forest and hide in it. There they find Aguirre without his mask and get mesmerized by his dashing looks while he asks them who they were while feeling annoyed. They all look at his beautiful face and start fangirling after him as if he's Adonis, but then Gap walks in with some freshly slain prey and calms them down. Aguirre tries to throw the girls out, but Gap tells him that they can't do that as there are wild monsters outside. Just like that, more and more people find the castle and start living in it, much to Aguirre's annoyance, but he manages to learn to appreciate them as well over time. On the other hand, we see all the teachers gathering up for some tea while watching their students, and they get into an argument on who has the best students. We also find out that Karoli and Kame's team has collected over 14,000 points, and that Balam won the Harvest Festival at his time with 55,000 points, and he did it without harming any plants or animals. Carla and Elizabetta are sitting on about 9,500 points. Aguirre and Gop have a little over 8,000 points, while Loser and Jazz's team has almost 13,000 points combined. On the other hand, Iruma and Lyde's team is sitting tight with 0 points, making all the teachers lose hope in them, but Sullivan and Bachiko root for him and join the argument as well. With that, the first day of the Harvest Festival comes to an end and everyone goes to sleep, but we see 2 pairs still fighting at this hour, including Alice and Sabro, who are competing for points against the Dorodoro Brothers for a boss-class monster. There seems to be a misunderstanding going on where the Dorodoro brothers think that Alice and Saburo were trained by Furfur. They offer them a bunch of points and say that they will defeat them to prove their worth to their sensei, who suddenly left them the military camp and came to Babel's. Alice and Saburo think that they are talking about Balam, and this whole misunderstanding gives birth to an uncanny rivalry among them. During their battle, the brothers use their special bloodline ability that elevates their target's emotions and makes them make dumb decisions. They use this ability on both of them, as well as the monster they are fighting, and makes it go berserk at Alice and Saburo. Things look bad for them, but then Alice decides to go full chopper mode and goes into his evil cycle transformation. He reveals that during their training, Balam introduced them to a pair of drugs which makes a demon go into their evil cycle and get out of it. Using this, one can get a power boost in a pinch and overcome the challenge in front of them, but it's also hard on the user's mind and body, and that's why he trained them both to get a strong mind and body. After going into his evil cycle, Alice goes on to single-handedly obliterate the monster, and then walks towards the brothers to teach them a lesson, but Saburo jumps in and shouts him back to his senses using Iruma's name. After that, they both start arguing as usual, but this display of power surprises the Dorodoro brothers, and they decide to accept their defeat. Alice and Saburo say that they are not going to fight them as that's against the rules of the festival, but are happy to compete alongside them, and they all decide to move on together. On the other hand, we see Iruma realizing that he has managed to successfully secure a total of 0 points on his first day of the festival, and this makes him worried as he wants to win the festival as well. Lide comes in with some hope and tells him about the legendary leaf and how that's worth 100,000 points, which can help them secure the first spot for sure. With this new goal set, they decide to find Kame to request him to use his ability to talk to the animals of the forest to gain information about this legendary leaf and where one can find it. They eventually run into them and become Kirori's slaves, but manage to secure a deal where they have to do a demi-idol dance show for them while dressing up as beta males in exchange for the information. At first, they are both against it, but decide to give in for the information and get a pone out of the forest animals that hint towards the location of the seed and the special pot required to make the legendary leaf bloom. At the same time, we see Ameri and the student council helping with the rescue mission for injured students when they come across a huge crowd of students in the forfeit grounds who are placing bets on who will win the festival and get the title of the young king. There, they also notice Aloser and Jazz eating dem noodles and wonder what they were doing there. They ask him about it, and Jazz reveals that after collecting 13,000 points from one area, they decided to split their points and go find new targets in another area. While walking through the forest, they encountered multiple clones of Jazz's brother who bullied him since childhood, and Jazz instinctively attacked him to take revenge. This is when the illusion came off, and they found out that it was actually another first year from a different class named Arobas, and he seemed to be specifically targeting the members of the Misfits class during the festival. Hitting another participant during this festival meant forfeiting, and this is how Jazz got eliminated. On the other hand, we see Iruma following the instructions that he got thanks to Kirori and finds the dungeon with the seed for the legendary leaf. Inside the dungeon, he meets the smelly first-year student Nafra, who is alone due to him not bathing for a month like Asmongold. Ali tells Iruma to ignore him and to move forward as he is an enemy as long as they are participating in the festival, but Iruma, being Iruma, decides to free Nafra from his bindings and continues walking through the dungeon with him. They eventually come across the legendary seed protected by a divine spirit named Thoth. Thoth asks for them to impress him, and Iruma decides to tell him the story of the romance manga that he reads to Ameri. Nafra helps him as well, and they manage to get the seed from the Guardian. Thoth also gives Iruma his phone number so he can tell him the rest of the story later. With that, they start making their way out, but then Ocho and Orobas attack Iruma with their illusions and make him fall down from a cliff. Nafra tries to fight them, but they just ignore him and walk out, while Iruma manages to survive but hurts his foot. Down there, he continues to fight the illusion that Orobas has imparted to a spider monster, but Iruma says that he will protect his life and secret as a human in this world because he cherishes this new life, and attacks the monster with his arrow and defeats it. Just then, Nafra flies down and asks him why he doesn't fly back up. Iruma tells him that he can't fly because of his small wings, so Nafra helps him out with a special plant that grows really fast when you water it, like the magical beanstalk. Iruma grabs Nafra and makes the plant grow absurdly fast and big using some of his human blood, and they make it out of there with the seed. Meanwhile, Lide manages to find the special pot needed to grow the legendary leaf using his half of the information and waits for Iruma. But then the teachers decide to spice things up as they announce that Lide and Iruma got the components for the legendary leaf, and that the pot in itself is worth 20,000 points. This turns Lide into a prime target for everyone, and he gets his pot stolen by Elizabetta, but it turns out to be Oroba is using Naruto's Sexy Jutsu. After that, Orobas turns the pot in for points and secures his position as the top of the class. On the other hand, Iruma meets up with Lyde, who tells him about Elisabetta stealing the pot from him. They decide to go talk to her and find out if they can get the pot back somehow, and Lyde uses his insane concentration and magic sensing ability to locate where the girls were. At the same time, we see that Elisabetta and Carla are with Karori, who is planning on attacking Ager's castle to steal all the points from people inside. She leads her army of monsters to wage a war with them, while Elisabetta and Carla are tasked with distracting the guards to ensure their victory. As the war begins, Iruma and Lyde arrive on the scene and meet up with them and ask Elisabetta about the pot. She tells them that she never met Lyde after their first encounter, and just then Nafra tries to tell them about something. Thanks to Kaim's special ability, he translates Nafra's actions into words and explains that it was Orobas who attacked them and was targeting the Misfits class members. With this information, they have Lyde use his concentration ability to find where Carla and Orobas were, and he tells them that Orobas was about to attack Carla, who was hopping around in the forest. Karori lends them her fastest mounts and they dash towards Carla to save her in time. On the other hand, Orobas casts his illusion magic on a plant monster and makes it look like Iruma and hurts Carla with some emotional damage before attacking her with a monster, but Iruma shoots the monster down just in time and saves her. This makes Orobas really mad and he decides to attack Carla personally, but Alice arrives just in time to knock the living daylights out of him with a fiery punch from behind. This makes him forfeit the festival, which makes Orobas happy, but Alice walks up to him and beats his ass down and says that he will find him and make sure his soul begs him to burn it to nothingness before walking back to the forfeit tent. After saying goodbye to Alice, Iruma, Lyde, and Carla turn around to find Orobas missing, and we see Ocho helping him out of there. Ocho then shows Orobas a bunch of high-level ingredients and gives them to him so he can win the festival, and then erases his memories about himself. On the other hand, the time seems to be running out as Iruma spent a lot of time in the dungeon and things start looking bad for them. Just then, one of the teachers walks towards them and they wonder if they did something wrong, but it turns out that it's actually Alloser who was pretending to be the teacher at the Point Collection Center, and he tricked Orobas into giving him the pot. He then gives it to Iruma for free and says that he wants him to win and walks away with 12,800 points to himself. We also find out that Samuro secured 45,500 points, the Doradoro brothers made 37,100 points each, Karori refused to turn the animals in for points and secured 36,800 points for herself, while Kaim made 22,500 points, Elisabetta made 20,700 points. Agers and Gap managed to hold Karori's forces back, and everyone inside the castle offered up their points to them and got them both 32,300 points each, while Alice and Jazz dropped out with 0 points. With time running out and the legendary seed and the pot in their hands, Iruma, Carla, and Lyde start working on getting the seed to bloom. They remember their lessons from their Dem Botany teacher and use the blooming magic on the seed, but it requires a lot of magic as well as imagination from them. With his magic running out in the ring, Iruma feels helpless, but then they remember that Carla absorbed a lot of magic from him on their first encounter thanks to her magic pocket, and she charges it up and gives it to them. Thanks to all these efforts, they managed to make the legendary leaf bloom, which turns out to be a stupid-looking balloon flower. Carla says that she doesn't want any points from the flower, as it is theirs to have, and gives up her rights to any points from it. With that, the Harvest Festival comes to an end, and they all gather up for the results. Everyone expects Iruma and Lyde to win it, but Orobas comes in first with 58,000 points. This shocks everyone, but they all feel uneasy about it, including Orobas, who doesn't seem to remember how he got all those fruits, and getting this first place seemed too artificial to him. Just then, Jazz comes in with his big brain and says that they should recalculate the points, as the legendary leaf was worth 100,000 points and the pot was worth 20,000 points in itself, which means Iruma and Lyde should get 60,000 points each instead of 50,000 points. This puts them both at first place, and everyone rejoices at their victory, including Orobas, who acknowledges their efforts and apologizes for his misbehavior out of jealousy, as he always came second in all the exams thanks to that smart-ass Alloser. With this, Iruma and Lyde are named the Young Kings, and the legendary leaf speaks up and rewards them by turning every tree around them into a cherry blossom. With that, the winners are awarded new ranks, and Iruma and Lyde rank up to Dolph, with many of the Misfits ranking up to Gimmel. Later that evening, Sullivan asks Orobas about his companion, and thanks to all their research, he manages to locate Ocho and tells Robin to send a message by shooting an arrow through him but keeping him alive on purpose. He says that he won't let anyone ever interfere with the students of Babel's, and Ocho gets to drag his bleeding ass to Bale to make a report. There we find out that Ocho is one of Ball's underlings who is trying to get information about Iruma to blackmail Sullivan in some way, and thanks to his secret mic that he put on Iruma earlier in the festival, they found out that he was actually human. Kiryu also finds out about this, and he decides to eat Iruma alongside Ball. After the Harvest Festival, Iruma decides to go see a bunch of his friends and begins his trip by visiting Lyde. At his house, they play a bunch of video games and meet his elder sister named Shaki, who is single and always looking for a boyfriend. She tries to hit up on Iruma as well, but Lyde turns her into a blanket burrito and tells her to stay away. After that, Iruma continues his school as usual, and during one of his manga reading sessions with Ameri, she mentions how she wants to try baking as in the manga, but she can't because she is banned from her kitchen. Iruma decides to invite her to his home so they can bake together, and they both have an at-home date where Opera helps them with baking some cookies because they both suck ass at cooking. Sullivan seems to be out this day for some business and becomes really sad when he later finds out that Iruma made cookies and he missed witnessing that. After that, he calls Bachiko and rewards her with a bunch of sweets for helping Iruma with his training, and then asks her to report to him about the happenings of the Netherworld. After she makes her report, Sullivan reveals to her that Iruma is a human and he wants her to continue supporting him with her training methods. He also asks her if she wants him to erase her memories about this if she's uncomfortable with knowing this fact, but she says that she doesn't care and shows that she's not a racist. Just then, Clara comes in with an invitation from Alice to Iruma's house, and they both go to his house. They spend the rest of the day playing games and cooking and enjoying all sorts of things at Alice's house, but Iruma feels conflicted about keeping a secret from his two best friends. While walking through his house, he encounters Alice's mother, who grabs him and says how happy she's to finally meet him, as he is all her son talks about now. Iruma tells her about how he is keeping a secret from his friends and doesn't want to, and she gives him some elderly advice and tells him that it is fine to keep secrets, but if he feels like he can trust them with it, then he should not let it burden him alone. With this, Iruma decides to go talk to them, and instead of revealing that he is a human, he tells them that he really wanted to thank them for being there for him and helping him during the festival, and that he truly loves them both and feels blessed to have them as his friends. This makes them both really happy as well, and they jump on him with joy. The next morning, they all go back to school, and the Misfits class decide on working towards getting the rest of the class members to become Daleth as well. They gather around, and Iruma says that they seem to be missing someone, and that's when Caligo points towards their 13th class member named Soy, and we find out that he has been there in the class from day one, but everyone somehow managed to simply forget about him all this time. Scroll back and see if you can find him in some of the earlier events in the video and enjoy his IRL stealth jutsu. And this is how the first 3 seasons of Welcome to Demon School. Iruma-kun comes to an end.